The top cop who put his badge on the line for justice.
You know the name Doug Poppa?
Yes, I do. God bless Doug Poppa, an honest cop.
He was a man of integrity. His testimony last summer freed an innocent man from jail who had already been convicted of shooting his ex-wife. But Poppa's going public cost him his job as an undercover cop.
I was elated, of course, but then as he testified, I was somewhat concerned for him, because I knew that they were probably going to crucify that man.
Sometimes the truth has a price. That may be the lesson of a Virginia police officer who says, in trying to do the right thing, he ended up paying for it.
The message you're sending is, see, we did it, Doug. You don't come out, you don't buck the system. No matter what the reason is, you just can basically keep your mouth shut. But if I wouldn't do it all over again, I would take the badge and I would leave it on somebody's desk and get out of police work. Because the day I can tell the truth because somebody's pressuring me, and the day the system doesn't want me to tell the truth because somebody's pressuring me, is the day I leave the badge on the desk and walk away.
Poppa was fired for insubordination. One man who confronted truth and consequences.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 122 of the Truth and Consequences podcast. I'm your host, Doug Poppa. I'm an independent investigative journalist, as you all know, a former law enforcement officer, U.S. Army military police veteran. I spent 20 years in the casino industry as an investigator and as an executive director of security, and then director of security and surveillance. Listen, on episode 121 was our exclusive story when we broke this story. Let me get this thing going here. Okay. Episode 122 was another exclusive story that we broke here on the podcast, and it was titled LVMPD Officer Richard J. Landahl, and that's Landahl Jr., charged with open/gross lewdness, relieved of duty. And we broke that on September 29th, and 5 days later, yesterday on October 3rd, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department released a press release, and let me show it up on the screen here, and I'll read it for my audio podcast listeners, because they're not going to be able to see what's coming up on the screen. Get back over here. Okay. We released our podcasts with the information I got from my police sources, like I said, on September 29th. 5 days later, on October 3rd, which was yesterday, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department released this press release. It's for immediate release. LVMPD officer faces charges for lewd conduct. On September 21st, 2022, the LVMPD received information from an employee that an employee, later identified as Officer Richard Landahl, committed a lewd act while receiving treatment at a local chiropractic office. The investigation, initiated by the LVMPD Criminal Investigation Section, indicated that Landahl had committed the crime of open and gross lewdness at the chiropractor's office during a treatment session. A judge issued a summons in lieu of arrest for one count of open and gross lewdness, and Landahl is scheduled to appear in court on October 27, 2022. Officer Landahl has been employed with the LVMPD since 2017. He is assigned to the Community Policing Division, Spring Valley Area Command. Landahl has been placed on suspension of police powers with pay pending the outcome of the criminal and internal investigations. That pretty much substantiates everything I said in my podcast. Now they say he's relieved of pay. I originally heard that he was relieved without pay, and then they changed it to relieved with pay. Some of the police sources, police personnel that I spoke to, they're a little upset about that because normally if you're arrested or charged with a criminal charge, you're suspended without pay. And if you remember a couple of months back, I don't have the notes here, but we had a police officer out here who was involved in a road rage incident. I think his name was Colin Summers, if I have it correct, and he's on suspension without pay. So they're asking questions. Who determines what police officers charged with a criminal offense are relieved with pay and some are relieved without pay? Anyway, they wanted me to get that out. So I got it out. I said in that podcast that as I get more information, let me get me off the screen here for a second. That as I get more information, I keep you updated. And I did receive more information, which I'm going to read here for the first time on my podcast. Again, this is another exclusive, not hit by the Las Vegas media. Now, yesterday, when the LVMPD press release came out, all the Las Vegas media reported on it based on the LVMPD press release. But like I said, we broke this, I say we, me, I am the podcast, on September 29th, as we break in multiple stories for several years, that most of them are not picked up by the Las Vegas media unless they get information from the police like they did yesterday. So I want to post something up here. This is the, I'm just posting the header on the screen, but I said in my podcast the other day that I read they applied to the court for the arrest warrant, and go back and look at the other podcast because I'm not going to rehash everything I said in that podcast, but I have the link in this podcast video, so you can go back and look at the other one. But I said in that podcast, I was reading the court records that they submitted to the court, the declaration of warrant, the affidavit for arrest or summons, and that the arrest warrant was issued, but then they decided to issue a summons, and then he was not booked into the Clark County Detention Center, and therefore there's no book. Anyway, go back and look at the podcast. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel by talking on it. So I obtained more information exclusive to this podcast, and I'm going to put this header up on the screen here for a minute. Okay, that's the header of the declaration, page 1, warrant of arrest summons that I'm going to read here in a second. And let me just put that back up on the little box over here if I can get it up there. You can see it. No, I don't want that over there. Okay, get it over here. Okay, so that's up there in the corner. So, and people keep telling me all the time, you have stuff on the screen, but I read it, people, because I have audio portions of my audio podcast, and they're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, and some other stuff, and the people cannot see what I have posted. So that's why I read stuff on the podcast, and plus it's my podcast, I'll do what the hell I want to do. So this is the declaration of warrant / summons. It was filed with the, like I said in the podcast, this was filed with the Las Vegas Justice Court here in Las Vegas, and it's stamped September 28th, 2022. It has the event number LLV 2209-000 and a bunch of numbers. That's the rest of it's up on the screen if you want to see it. Anyway, it's State of Nevada, County of Clark, Richard Landahl. It says ID number, looks like 606-4443. That's his system ID number. The date of birth, social security number, that's redacted. Now, I have the victim's name in this. It's in this report that I'm reading, and the location where this happened, the business location. But I'm not going to. I'll just refer to it as the victim right now. So let me read page 1. Detective M. Pacheco, spelled Pacheco, being first duly sworn, deposes and says that he is a detective with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, being so employed for a period of 7 years, assigned to investigate the crime of open or gross lewdness, NRS 201.210, committed on or about September 20th, 2022, which investigation has developed Richard Landahl as the perpetrator thereof. Now, I'm going to read some more. These detectives that I'm talking about, when they talk about the criminal investigative section, that's the CIS, the criminal investigative section of the Criminal Internal Affairs Unit, according to my sources. So these guys are internal affairs detectives. I'll keep reading here. That declarant, who was Pacheco, developed the following facts in the course of the investigation of said crime, to wit. Like I said, I'm going to say victim. I'm not going to say the name or the location, so I'm going to substitute the victim. On September 21st, 2022, a female victim, DOB, I'm not going to say what that is, arrived at the LVMPD's Northwest Area Command to report being the victim of an open or gross lewdness incident. Due to the nature of the allegation, Detective J. Jennings, P number 6178, and Sergeant K. Summers, P number 14109, from the LVMPD's Criminal Investigative Section, CIS, responded to the area command to conduct an audio-recorded interview with the female victim. Interview with female victim, not verbatim. CIS conducted an audio-recorded interview with female victim at approximately 11:55 hours, and she explained that on September 20th, 2022, at approximately 1100 hours, she met with a client identified as Richard Landahl, ID number that I read before, at her place of work. Female victim works at, I'm leaving that out, located at in Las Vegas, Nevada, as a massage therapist, and told CIS that Landahl had requested her to be his therapist for that day's session. Upon meeting Landahl, she explained she recognized Landahl but believed she had only given him one massage before. She then escorted Landahl into a private room and instructed him to dress down to his level of comfort. Female victim then left the room and returned shortly after to begin the massage therapy session. Female victim explained she had Landahl start the session face down on the table, laying on top of one sheet with another draped over his body. Female victim stated Landahl was still wearing his underwear, but nothing else. She lowered the top sheet to expose the upper and lower back while having the rest of his body covered with his hands down to his side. Female victim started to massage Landahl's back near his shoulders. Shortly after the massage began, Landahl began to breathe deeply, and female victim asked him if he was doing okay, and if she was using too much pressure on his back. Female victim stated Landahl mentioned and stated, quote, no. When he stated, quote, no, Landahl's hand then moved into the area of his groin, quote, gave one tug, unquote, and the hand left the groin area. Female victim explained to CIS that it is not uncommon. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is page 1. As I get more information, I will update you in a podcast on that. This is going to be a short podcast today because my throat's killing me. So that's an update. That's an exclusive here on, and this is a 7-page report, and I'll read the rest, when I get these pages and get them organized and everything. But anyway, so that's page 1, and like I said the other day, everybody's innocent until proven guilty. The other day I posted some upcoming stuff that's coming on. One, I got another podcast coming out. My next one should be another major internal affairs investigation that I was apprised of a couple of weeks ago. Like I said, I've been backed up for a couple of months on stories. I posted a video the other day. I just want to bring this up because it just shows the immaturity, in my opinion, of some people. I posted a video, I think it was October 2nd, because it was the anniversary, October 1st. Everybody knows the 5-year anniversary of the Las Vegas massacre, worst mass shooting in modern American history. So I posted a video, and it's online. It's on my YouTube channel, of LVMPD Officer Cordell Hendricks and his contingent of armed people with him, his partner and 3 Mandalay Bay security supervisors, all armed, that took no action to advance to the threat. And I'm not going to get into this. I'm going to do a separate podcast on this guy that I'm talking about here. So I post my stories on LinkedIn. And of course, sometimes you get comments, which I don't care. People want to, my opinion is, he should have done something. Okay, he should advance the threat, at least make an attempt. And they didn't do anything. Matter of fact, Sheriff Joe Lombardo, if you remember some of my podcasts and the stories I wrote for the Baltimore Post-Examiner, he even said in interviews after the massacre that armed security are force multipliers for the police. So you had Hendricks and his partner on the 31st floor for several minutes while the shooting was going on, did absolutely nothing, with 3 armed Mandalay Bay assistant security managers. And then on the 32nd floor, one floor above them, you had the security operations manager, the shift manager, the head guy that night, also armed, and at least 2, possibly 3, if I remember my stories correctly, armed Mandalay Bay security bike patrol officers. So you have a contingent of 8 people, all armed, and nobody did anything. They just stood around and didn't do nothing while the shooting was going on. Now, some people say, well, they were right to do nothing. They don't want to get killed. That's your opinion. And, this is over with. It's the 58 people are dead. 2 more died from their injuries later on, and almost 500 were wounded by gunfire. It's a former police officer. Other police officers have different opinions. He should have attempted to do something. You advance to the threat, or you make an attempt to do it. They didn't do anything. They stayed on the floor. So that's what I'm saying that. And like I said, I released that, and I post my stuff on my LinkedIn account, to my stories, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Reddit, and a bunch of other things. It goes out all over the place. So a retired Las Vegas Metro police officer, and I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to do a separate podcast on this, and I'm going to tell you why. He responded to me, saying, well, what would you have done? And all I said was, I would have, attempted to do something. As people being killed, you're listening to the radio, listen to the video, watch the video, it's on my podcast. And when you're hearing the radio traffic, cops are saying, we need to get to the shooter. Cops are getting shot, people are dying, and he's listening, they're all standing there and doing nothing. So that's the decision that they made that night, not to do anything. All I said was, I would have done something. Now, this retired police officer, they have to start attacking you. Like, well, what would you done and what could he have done? And he could have done a lot, but I'm not going to talk about it in this podcast. Anyway, so another guy chimed in and starts attacking me, okay? Obviously didn't know anything about my background because he's telling me, well, maybe you should do a ride-along with police and you've never been in a situation and all this type of nonsense. And then he attacks because my LinkedIn account says I'm a U.S. Army veteran. And this guy's a supposed Marine, former Marine. So he starts attacking my service in the Army. Like, well, and I'll read it and I do in the podcast, but, he's ridiculing that I was in the Army because I guess, he's a Marine, he doesn't like the Army. And I've never heard in all my years any military veteran attack another veteran's branch of service. But this guy did. And he posted this on LinkedIn. And at the time, there was like 2,000 views on this, so people were watching this when I posted it on the LinkedIn channel. So anyway, long story short, I did some checking, and I find out this buffoon, now his bio, because I looked at right away who he was, and I'm going to talk about this fully, and I'll mention who he is and all this stuff in this podcast when I do it, but he's a company vice president in Arizona, and got a bunch of stuff on his LinkedIn bio, which is deceptive and false, okay? I did backgrounds, thousands of backgrounds when I was in the corporate world, and you could tell when somebody starts, leaving things out and adding dates into other things, it's the red flags go up. Anyway, long story short, and there was a big thing missing on his bio. So he's attacking me, for whatever reason, want to make him feel like he's a big man because he's a former Marine and I was in the Army and I don't know nothing. And I responded back to him. I said, what is your law enforcement experience? I spent almost 18 years with different agencies in law enforcement. And then the other cop starts attacking me like, well, this guy could take you out at 1,000 yards. Great, okay? So anyway, long story short, he doesn't acknowledge me, okay? So I sent him another, this was all on LinkedIn. Now, he's since deleted all this stuff, because, and I'll tell you in a minute why he did it. So I responded back to him and I said, really? I said, I'll take your comment with a grain of salt. because I'm looking at your bio, and what's missing from your bio is that you were fired from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department for lying. So your integrity's in the gutter with me. Now, this was late that night. I think it was Sunday night when I posted this, and the following morning, he deleted his comment. And you all know if you're on LinkedIn, if you delete your comment, you delete all the responses to it. But what he didn't know is I screenshotted everything. Now, he's since blocked me from looking at his LinkedIn account, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to do a podcast on this guy because he's questionable over the years. And according to sources I spoke at Metro, he was basically what we call as a BS artist on a lot of stuff, exaggerated his military service, from what I understand. And there's a lot of stuff on this guy on the internet going back at least 10 years. So anyway, I look at it this way, people. You want to make comments, and people do. They comment on, on YouTube. Some people say, you're a freaking idiot. Fine. You want to think I'm an idiot. But when you start going into the gutter, and then this other retired cop started doing it too later on, I just deleted his comments, like their experience is better than yours, and what you're doing. That's like, this to me, this is like high school baby crap that I don't have time to deal with. Okay, but this guy opened the door when he attacked me, and he is a fired Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and he leaves that out of his bio, and he is a vice president of a company in Arizona. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's any Army veterans at this company that he works with in Arizona when my podcast comes out. So he opened up the door, and I'm going to close it on my podcast. So that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is 21 minutes. I have more information coming in, like I said, on another major internal affairs investigation. I got a lot of other things I'm working on, a lot of out-of-state stuff also. So support me if you can. PayPal.me/Doug Poppa. Like I said, I work independent. Money that's used for databases and equipment and stuff like that all comes out of my own pocket. I don't have an income from this podcast. PayPal.me/Doug Poppa. The what do you call it? The audio podcast people talk about all the time because some people don't want to look at the video. Like I said, iHeart Radio and Spotify, they're on there. And we'll see you. I want to make sure I didn't leave anything out here. And I go on a rant sometimes, but it's when I look at these things like this, to me, it's like this guy's an adult, and these people are adults, and they act like they're in high school. Like, your experience don't mean nothing because my experience more than you. It's like it's baby stuff to me. It's actually it's the point of being so immature when they start doing this because they don't like what you said. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, had I been on the 31st floor instead of Hendricks, with a partner and 3 armed supervisors, I would have done something to make an attempt to reach the shooter that night while people were being slaughtered and killed, including police officers being shot and injured and over 450 people. I'm just not going to stand on the, for whatever reason, that this guy didn't do it. He's nervous, he didn't know what to do. He says that in his report. And the only thing I'm going to give Cordell Hendricks credit for is he didn't lie in his police report. He said exactly what he was feeling. He didn't know what to do. He didn't, he was afraid. He froze. At least he put it in his report. That's as far as I'm going to go is supporting him because I don't support his non-action that night. Now, I talked about this in a couple of podcasts, and I just remembered this. 1 or 2 more minutes here. There were other police officers that night that Sheriff Lombardo and his undersheriff, who's now the sheriff-elect, Kevin Bakehill, kept from the public and the media, who had questionable actions that night. And I'm going to talk about that in a separate podcast, including some other stuff relating to the massacre that Sheriff Lombardo lied about even just a couple of weeks ago to, I believe it was the Las Vegas Review-Journal. So anyway, look at my podcast. They're all out there on YouTube. It's free. Subscribe to YouTube if you're not a subscriber. And we'll see you on the next episode.